Good evening, everyone. This is Brian, and welcome to Brian Destroys Everything, January 31st, 2020. Tonight, I'm going to talk about a bunch of various subjects. I'll talk about the governmental stuff first, and that way, if you aren't into sports, I'll transition to that and you can leave. First of all, I'm going to talk about Trump's impeachment trial. I think it was a bad idea to re-impeach Trump. I don't think the second impeachment was a good idea. In the moment when the House of Representatives did it, it was a good idea, but it was poorly planned and mistimed. And the reason I say that is because the further we get away from the event that caused the idea for impeachment, the more the ideological divide in our country is exacerbated and replanted, because if you look at it, all but 5 of the Republican senators in Congress now say it's a bad idea for us to impeach Trump, and the likelihood of him being impeached without witnesses, without actual evidence, and just like the first trial, he won't be impeached. It probably won't even go to a vote. And that's really sad. That being said, we're only 2 weeks or 3 weeks removed from this stupid incident. And it's dumb because it could have been prevented. We could have had this nipped in the bud by impeaching him the first time for bullying a country to interfere in our election, but the Republicans did the same thing they're doing now. They're saying, "Well, we don't know," and it goes back to what I talked about in one of my previous videos regarding power. People who think they have power, and I mean this, they do have power of a sort, but real power isn't the power that politics brings you. Real power is holding someone's life in your hands and saying, "Okay, well, I'm going to let you live or I'm going to kill you." That's real power. And unless you've actually held a gun or held someone's neck in your hands or anything like that, you don't know what power is. You just think, "Oh, I can say this and someone will do this and blah, blah, blah." But that's not real power. That's someone who feels a loyalty to you doing something that you won't do in most cases. I mean, if most people just want to live their lives, and the more they have the opportunity to interfere in someone else's lives, the more they think they actually know about what they're doing. And most of the time they just don't. And so we'll get to, it's just frustrating. But the reality is that no one, it doesn't seem like the Republicans in Congress have learned anything. And they're still going to try and prevent you from doing shit you want to do, or in some cases you need to do. And as long as they won't, they're obstructionists and won't work with the current government, the more likely we're going to have a repeat of Donald Trump. It may not be Donald Trump, but as extremism enters into a party, and we're looking at you progressives in the Democratic Party, nothing wrong with a lot of the stuff you're saying, but the language is getting weaponized, and that's dumb. You can't encourage cooperation by saying, oh, we're going to do this, 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 and this to you. It doesn't work. And so you have, it just splinters and nothing gets done. You know, I've said before, and I'll say it again, Congress is probably the most useless body on our planet. The House of Representatives hasn't passed a reasonably decent piece of legislation since the Civil Rights Act of 1964. And don't give me the ADA. The ADA was just an amendment. About passing a budget is about the best they can do. And, well, you see where we're at now. And we haven't even talked about the stimulus. And I'll get to that in a few minutes. But, I mean, so we have lost, and I say we because it doesn't matter whether you're a Democrat or Republican, a white nationalist, a progressive, none of that. We have lost our ability to communicate and actually get stuff done because we can't agree on anything. We can't make progress without some compromise. Now, I've said before, and I'll say it again, compromise from a position of strength is capitulation. And I mean that, because if you are in a position where you can say, well, we can do this, 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 and this, and all of this would be good, and then you say, well, we'll take that and you can keep it. And I mean, I'll say this. I'll use this as an example, and it's a tenth rail discussion that no one should be talking about. But we can talk about compromised positions on slavery. Now, slavery is stupid. Slavery is a way, while slavery is a way to get free labor and have dominance over people, it's just dumb, because free people who are working for something, real something, are more likely to further what you're doing than people forced to do what you want without any compensation outside of letting them live. And that's what slavery is. Slavery is forcing someone to do something for you without having any compensation outside of being able to live. And most of the time, there's other stuff included with the slavery. But we'll talk about slavery in our country. Slavery was supposedly abolished in our country in 1865 or 1867 when the 13th Amendment was passed. I'm not sure when it was passed. I don't do research. I've read it. I understand it. And after reading the 13th Amendment, we really didn't abolish slavery. Now, you can't personally, you can't own a slave. But if you commit a crime and you're sent to prison, it's considered slavery. And if you don't believe me, look up the 13th Amendment and read it. So we've changed slavery from a personal thing to an institutional thing. And if you look at prisoners and the things they go through and what they have to do, it is disturbing, the parallels. And we'll talk, I mean, I'm going to dedicate an entire video to this. But if you have to work 40 hours a week for 50 cents an hour, and you do it for 15 years or however long your prison sentence is, and you get out and you still owe X amount of dollars adjusted for inflation as restitution, What have you done for the last 20 years? Repaying your debt to society shouldn't include indentured servitude. And I'll leave it there. But this is something I'd like to talk about, and I will do so in the near future. I haven't decided when, but it's going to be an intense video and a long one. So, but I'm moving with this. I'm going to talk about the second stimulus plan. Now, I have said stuff in previous videos about how the first stimulus kind of hamstrung the government from really effectively producing a second stimulus. And the second stimulus plan bore that out. Now they want to do a third stimulus, which, while I agree is needed, the political will to pass something like that is not there. And the problem is that the Republicans are fighting tooth and nail to avoid helping out localities that, in most cases, Republican-controlled legislatures passed regarding pension obligations and healthcare obligations for unionized employees or government employees. We can talk about how the House of Representatives and the Senate in 2006 passed a law that says the post office has to pay 75 years in retirement benefits ahead of time in order to fulfill its obligations, thereby basically bankrupting the Postal Service. And we can talk about it like this, or there's a video from John Oliver where they kind of go into details about it. But so the Republicans are fighting tooth and nail to prevent a solution to a problem, some of them probably caused by voting on this legislation previously. And so when it comes to new stimulus, which I think is, they didn't do anything. They really didn't pass any meaningful funding in the previous stimulus, except for some vaccine distribution stuff. And they set up a rental assistance program. But I've stated before, and I'll say it again, while I'm not in favor of enriching a landlord or any sort of person in charge who owns something because they actually took the time to buy it and then are taking advantage of their renters, there needs to be rental forgiveness. We need to pay the landlord so they can pay their mortgages and the bills and pay for repairs and all that stuff. And so, because that problem's not going to go away. The eviction problem is never going to go away, or at least it's not going to go away for years. And I mean, like here in San Francisco, it can take 3 years for you to be evicted from your place. 3 years. Now, they can go closer, but I mean, the eviction problem isn't going to go away. And so we need to create solutions. And we don't have it. And Congress is trying to put Band-Aids on stuff and kick stuff down the road like they always do, instead of actually fixing a problem that needs to be fixed. And so there we are. So now I'm not going to talk anymore about this, but I'm going to switch over to a couple things that happened over the weekend that surprised me a little. The LA Rams traded for Matthew Stafford and traded Jared Goff and a couple draft picks to Detroit. The scuttlebutt around the sports world is that the Rams paid too much. But in my opinion, and it's shared by a few people I've seen, my opinion was they paid the extra pick or picks to take Jared Goff's contract, which is ridiculous. And so it wasn't really a bad trade, especially given the Rams expect to pick at the end of every round, close to the end of every round, unless they just completely bomb and go 1-15, which is doubtful. So the Rams are going to pick at the back end of the round for all the picks they sent. So it's not, while first round picks are pretty valuable in the NFL, they're not. And so I don't think the Rams overpaid for Matthew Stafford, especially given they basically paid Detroit to take Jared Goff's monstrous, ridiculous contract, which I thought was hilarious. And it reminds me of 2015 when the Rams traded for Nick Foles and traded away Sam Bradford. Nick Foles didn't work out for the Rams, but Sam Bradford didn't work out for the Eagles either. And while they got a first-round pick for him because Teddy Bridgewater blew out his knee in Minnesota, he didn't do very well at any of his other stops either, and he's out of the league. It makes me wonder whether the Rams are actually good at picking quarterbacks number one or not. But when Sam Bradford was the last quarterback they took number one before Jared Goff, and that didn't work out either. But that's that. And then the other piece of news that kind of surprised me was Friday, the Colorado Rockies traded Nolan Arenado and are paying $50 million of his salary over the next 6 years or 8 years, whatever's remaining on his contract, for 5 not very good prospects, or 4 or something like that. The details aren't quite finalized on those, but basically it was similar to what the Padres did, traded Yu Darvish for, or got Yu Darvish for. They basically gave up prospects that probably will never see the major leagues for a very good or star player. And so it's good to see that that the market in MLB is actually coming around, but we'll see. Anyway, so that's my live stream for tonight. Thank you for watching. If you haven't already, go ahead and subscribe and like this video if you think it was good. Otherwise, I'll see you later. Thanks.